see you in the land of Mordor. Death awaits you at the border. Pass on through the gates of fun. Destroy the ring of power and wonder.
Hey, Middle-earth role-playing fans, Roman Dacel's back. Today we're going to be looking at the Dark Mage of Rhudaur. This is 8013 of the series. This was released in 1989. I bought this from Imperial Hobbies back in the day for probably 12 bucks. Maybe more. It's a long time to remember. I love the cover art, Agnes of Pride, and I actually enjoyed this module a lot. But let's get right down into it. Alright, back down the battle board. So like I said, I love the cover art by Agnes McBride. In the backdrop you see the Turth-on, surrounded by orcs and Dunlendings, and you got some blood whites in the backdrop, and the beacon's going, calling for help. So it's a pretty cool scene. Battering ram at the gate. Anyway, let's go inside. So right away you get a map of Central Rhudaur. And you can see the lands of the En-egladil down below. So these adventures center primarily around this area. That's where the Turth-on is. And then the En-egladil. Table of contents, the guidelines, gives you a little bit of a story of what's happening out front. Definitions, which are always good. And then adapting the module, converting stats and bonuses, conversion chart. This is for the Rollmaster system. In case you wanted to, instead of using the MERP system, you wanted to use these books with Rollmaster itself. There were two different systems. Usually me and my friends, we use the Rollmaster spell charts. And sometimes also the professions table. Because Rollmaster had like a fighting monk, which MERP never had. So it's interchangeable with both systems. You also, if you don't want to make your own characters, or you just want to add a PC to a group of players, they give you a chart of pre-made PCs. Then it goes into the introduction of the Border War. So what I like about this module is it's a 1408 module of the Third Age. It's not your typical 1640 of the Third Age, though you can convert it to that as well too, or any time period. That's what I love about it. So this is about a border war between the Angle and the King of Rhudaur and the forces of Angmar. Because after the Great Northern War of 1356, after Angmar was defeated and pushed back by the Arthedanian, Cardellani, and Lynn, the Witch King retreated. He left a puppet king on the throne of Rhudaur, but in this scenario, the Angle has rebelled. It's in a state of rebellion from the crown of Rhudaur. So the people of the Angle are constantly fighting a back and forth war with the forces of Rhudaur. And by 1408, the Witch King has recovered his strength, brought in new forces from the east and from the Grey Mountains, in other words, other places in the Misty Mountains, and he's ready to renew his assault against the kingdoms of Arthedain and Cardellani. Now, to launch his surprise attack, he wants a supply line which runs through Rhudaur secured. Rhudaur has the only real road, the east-west road that runs from Rhudaur across the last bridge and onto Amansul. He needs that as a supply line, but the beacon towers are there to stop him. So he's got to destroy the beacon towers in southern Gondor, which yet defy his power. There are 5 of them: Gondor, En-egladil, stone trees of the Angle, to secure supply lines. So the Turth-on, which is the main one in this book, is the first one. Then it talks about the Angle itself. House Molosse was the Dúnedain lords of the region, greater lords of Rhudaur. There was only 5 of them, and they had some areas under their control. There are hobbits in the area, as well as mostly Northmen mercenaries. House Molosse has disappeared, but it's ruled by a granddaughter who's half Northman, half Dúnedain. And then it talks about the Trollshaws and the Fellwood. The Trollshaws are obviously most popular from The Hobbit, where there's trolls. Fellwood is called Evilwood. It's a Highland name. And there's an ancient evil supposed to be buried there. So then we got a regional map, and it talks about all the different the villages or towns. The capital of Onan and Gladel, lands of the Angle, is called Thuin Boyd. And it mentions all 5 of the watchtowers. And even has Harubar Galur, which is the ruined castle, which is in the very first Middle-earth role-playing rules book. It's the adventure that's in there that you go to. So that regional map is on the back inside cover, and you can see it right there. Other than Came with Brim, which isn't there. And that's a pretty cool regional map. It's great for using strategy and tactics, which way you're going to go, how you're going to do things. Then it's got Peoples of the Frontier. So you have the Rangers of the Dol Culturth. The Dol Culturth is the Bronze Guard, and that's their castle. The Culturth Bronze Guard was formed by one of the Dúnedain kings of Arnor to encourage native hillmen of Rhudaur to enter service. But only renegades and turncoats were filled out by assorted sellswords. So the Culturth eventually evolved into a tribe of professional warriors. They're no match for the Hillman Rangers, but they're pretty damn good Rangers. And they are waging this little war against the Volsegi, who are the remnant of Northmen mercenaries who once served the army of Rhudaur. So these are not Northmen from one tribe, they're from a mix of tribes that just banded together after the fall of the kingdom. So they have a feud. The Volsegi and the Culturth have a feud. They each raid one another, try and block each other. So they're the main protagonists in this thing. Next up, you go against the plot against the Turth-on. This is the first real adventure. The Witch-King decided the time has come to launch his war against Arthedain and Cardolan. But he needs to secure that supply line. So he's going to knock out all the beacon towers, or the main ones anyway, and overrun the angle in 1408. Because 1409 is when he launches his invasion. But he can't use large forces, as that would alarm the elves and Arthedain and Cardolan that something's up. So he's using local forces, the Witch-King is. So the Culturth are going to be there. They're going to get the services of a couple of Dunish tribal war bands and a few orc war miners. They're going to try and bribe some Volsegi. They're going to try and interdict the supply lines going to these towers. And they're also going to unearth an ancient evil. It's called Blogath. And he sent one of his sorcerer minions, Ethkali the Easterling, to try and awaken it. And he succeeds in awakening 2 blood whites, which we'll get into later. So that's the plot against the Turth-on. All these forces are going to be against the Turth-on. Before that, though, they give adventures in Rhudaur. The adventurers in Rhudaur. So you could be a party of adventurers traveling in Rhudaur and get caught up in the unfolding battle of the Angle. You could be hired as sellswords. You could be just in the wrong place at the wrong time. You can do whatever. It's not a big deal. Because regardless of your success or failure, the beacon towers will eventually succumb. The last of the Rhudarum towers fell to the forces of evil around 1420 to 1429 of the Third Age, and some of the Stuart hobbits who lived in the area lingered on their lands in the far south of the Angle until sometime after the Great Plague 2 centuries later. So again, you could use this scenario in 1640. And it gives you a layout of the Thuin Boyd, which is the capital of the Angle. Not Fennis Drunan, which is on the river, which is right at the tip. So it gives you all the locations in Thuin Boyd itself. And then they get right into the first adventure, which is before the snow falls. So this is a merchant called Dagar and his first Wayne Hosh, which is basically a wagon train, grain train. He's supposed to bring in supplies to the Turth-on. So he starts hiring guards. You can if you're a PC, you can join the wagon guard, or you can come across his wagon train while it's getting attacked. One of his minions, Nason, is trying to sabotage the whole operation from within. And you basically go around and see how this goes. So you get a gathering storm as more and more a Dunish village that's loyal to the Angle. It gets sacked by 2 war bands. So you can come across the ruins of this village. Then it gives a description of the Dunish war bands and their camp, the camp of Seol, Numa, and Machamur. You're not going to go in there with a party of adventurers and just start doing a Conan on them. You're going to need bigger forces. The idea is to avoid them, get around them, and warn warn the authorities. Then it goes through the NPCs like Dagar, Nasan, Dagar's Whaley, who are slaves, Nasan's allies. So Nasan has some thugs in Thuin Boyd as his buddies, Penda Oxkiller, and then you get the war chiefs of the 2 Dunish bands. So all these forces are trying to stop you from resupplying the watchtower. Is it a good adventure? Yeah, it's an okay adventure. So you get the tasks, starting the players, aids, obstacles, and rewards, encounters, You get more descriptions of Nassan, Penn and his friends, as well as wolf packs in the area, the Magtura, more about the Dunish warbands in the area. The Witch King sends a blizzard. You got Dunish patrols in the Dunish camp. So this is an okay adventure. It's a good starting adventure for what's ahead, because you do need a secure supply train. And to last the winter, you definitely need supplies, because the Volsegi Northmen are more cavalry based, and horses are useless in the winter. Section 5 talks about the beacon towers. So you get more backstory between these, which is kind of cool to read through. And you learn more about the House of Melose, the Eren, En-egladil, lords of the Angle, and one of the 5 great nobles of the region. So the last of House Melose rebelled against his king, and he suffered the price. But his defiance lasted until the Great Northern War, when the Lord and his sons fell in battle and House Melose was driven from its last outpost. The guy's bold granddaughter, the half-northern Volfelda, rallied the remnants of the mercenary army and recaptured her ancestral lands in southern Rhudaur. So that's how the Angle win back its freedom. Her campaign prevented a battalion of Eastern cavalry from taking the shorter route through the high pass in the East Road, and enabled the armies of Arthur and Curlin to win their major victory at Natharagal later that year. So this is not canon, obviously, in Tolkien's world, but it's a pretty cool story, and shows why the Witch King wants to secure the East Road before moving on to Cardolan. Then you get a area map of the Turth-on itself. There's the Turth-on, some outbuildings. You got a place called Yanari's Drift, which is it's a homestead, but it's been converted into a tavern to accommodate the rare traveler. It's where you find stuff out. So it's cool. If you photocopy this map, you can put all your little forces, or piece of paper or counters from some other game. You can mark out where the defenders are, or where the attackers are coming from. There's not enough defenders to defend the entire fence. There's only enough to defend the actual keep itself. Then you go into the tower layouts, the lower cellars, the upper cellar, level 1, level 3, and level 2, level 3. They've also got level 4 and the roof. So the layouts are cool. You can use these layouts anywhere in Middle Earth. They're pretty standard. Then we got En-egladil's plan of attack. How's he going to do it? So he's got a substantial detachment of Kulturith, Orc war miners, and Dunish tribal warriors, wolves and trolls recruited locally. So he's got enough forces to reduce the Turth-on before spring. But then the Witch King wishes all the watchtowers breached and subjugated by winter's end. So time is of the essence for this guy, and this is just the first one. And then he's also been searching for Blogath. We'll get to her in a minute. But he's got 2 blood whites in his control. Undead spirits whose translucent forms resemble noble men and women with pale faces and huge black feather wings. They haunt the night winds of the Second Age, and only the wise know these maleficent terrors were evil shape changers while they lived, able to fly as eagles, falcons, wild swans, or ravens. Death caught them amidst the change from man to bird, condemning them each to a shadow existence within Arda. These undead haunt the dreams of men, changing their sleep from time of peace and repose into one of affliction and despair. The victory achieved by the last alliance of men and elves loosed the blood whites from their living dead and freed the middle lands from their... Even the Eldar believed the blood whites to be a blight long defeated. So he's going after one of the few remaining. It's kind of like the Balrog. They all thought they were destroyed, but then you find one in Moria. Kind of the same idea. So the Witch King and En-egladil have managed to locate 2 of them, and the dream powers of the blood whites are being used against the commander of the Turth-on, Merendil Rhudaur. So he's grief-stricken and vulnerable. So they're playing mind games. And also we got the second in command's wife. She's kind of a flirt, so the blood whites are also affecting her dreams. And also lastly, En-egladil has garnered from slave prisoners, the details of the secret escape tunnel exiting the Turth-on. He's gathered a party of adventurers to attempt a surprise attack via this route. So you could be one of those guys. If you're an adventurer, you could be an evil one and do that. So there's a bunch of little things going on all over the place, which makes this a much more interesting book. So you got the Siege of the Turth-on, you got the NPCs. Merendil Rhudaur, who's a member of the 3rd branch of the House of Rhudaur. So he could technically become King of Rhudaur, if you so wish. And you can use this guy any time in other later ages, which I find cool. Yeah, Oswy Amradun, who is the second in command, his flirtatious wife. The garrison. There's only about 20, 22, so let's say 24 Northman warriors holding this keep. So it's not a huge garrison by any stretch of the imagination. And that's probably... So these aren't exactly huge buildings. There are also some slaves, but they're more... They would probably escape, but they're more afraid of the enemy that's coming. Then it gives you En-egladil, the Easterling, the Cultureth themselves, the Dunlendings, the Warcore miners, Yunari, who's a former Volsegi himself. If he manages to escape his tavern, then he could easily bolster the garrison. The Blood Whites themselves, their description. So the task is, should you arrive at the Turth-on in time to be caught in the siege, there's either 4 phases: Nightfall, the battle, striking back, and the grand assault that will transpire as the tower falls. So you might arrive at either time. And it's up to you if you want to join become one of the besieged, become the besieger, attack from the outside, or do whatever, or just run away. Get starting the players, aids, obstacles, rewards. So with encounters, you start with Nightfall. What's going to happen? So if you get there, you might be quarantined in Yunari's Drift. Not a bad place to spend the night, but watch out for what's coming. Then you have the actual battle of the Turth-on. What obstacles? So you got to read all this stuff, and it's pretty cool. Striking back. The defenders might launch a stroke or two against their foes. So a raid to restore morale. So you could slip out one of the gates and hit back, or start hitting from the side. There's not much the Northmen can do but sit and wait. Then there's the Grand Assault, the Granddaddy, which is what you see on the cover. So that's the Siege of the Turth-on. Next up, we got the Horror of the Fellwood. It's got the Tale of the Shapeshifter, the Excavation of Blogos Vale, some more of the backstory there, layouts, the Crystal Caves. Alright, so then we have the map for Blogos Vale. Not much to it. It's not a really good place to ambush anything. And then you have the Crystal Caves map, all the layouts that were mentioned. You could use that as an orc cave, like an orc hold or a troll cave. So there's many possibilities there. And he's got the NPCs, which are the orcs under En-egladil's command, some trolls. Then he goes more into the spirit of Blogath and her stone altar, where she made sacrifices to the Dark Lord. Those who slew her did not dare touch the artifact. Okay, so it gives more into what's going on there. Obviously, this didn't succeed because the elves would have just went nuts had they found out, and would have definitely gone in. So then you go into the main part, which is Blogath's halls. So she too is a blood white. Blogath is, but a greater one, I guess. So you got a task, starting the players, aids. So either you can be you can be part of the mission, or you can be against the mission and try and stop them. Rewards. So there's a vast amount of bulky treasure for the greedy and very diligent. But again, I think the elves would have cleaned up. Never really played the Blogath adventure very much because it just doesn't. You can't send a bunch of guys who are level 3, 4, and 5 into this. They're going to get their asses handed to them. So we never played that. We played the Siege of the Turth-on more than anything else. So you get a beast table, which is kind of funny because you have red-headed duck in the beast table. I don't consider that a beast. Consider that dinner. You got vampire bats, the whites. Then you got the major NPC tables, their stats. For the Before the Snow Falls, Besieged, and the Horror of the Fellwood. So Blogath, yeah, she's a blood white. She's a 30th level blood white. And her minion, Balasimir, is a 20th level blood white. Some ghosts to deal with. An encounter table. And then finally the back cover. Alright, so that was Dark Mage of Rhudaur. In a nutshell. What did I think of this module? I love this module. I've adapted it so much to the Three Kings period of Arthedain, Cardolan, and Rhudaur, and also the Northern Wars between Arthedain and Angmar, using Rhudaur as a starting point, among other things. So I absolutely enjoyed the book. I enjoyed the maps, the descriptions. It was just a great book. Much better than Mouse of the Antwash and Warlords of the Desert and some of the others I'm going to be covering. It's probably one of the best of the adventure modules. But anyway, any Middle-earth role-playing fans, let me know if you guys A, had this book, What did you think of it? And what are the pros and cons? Leave comments in the comment section. Hit that like button, subscribe, and if you're new to the channel, and let your friends know what I do. This is like to hear from more and more people. But until next time, this is Roman Daisel. I'm out of here.